Hello, I'm BMillzebub, and welcome to a live stream discussion sort of thing. We are going to be discussing whether atheists should call themselves heathens. And, the original plan was for just one atheist to be here, me, because my channel, but Alex wanted in. And, yeah.
Can't have fun without me.
Let's introduce the other panelists. I've got Sim Chaos and Use Your Noodle. Hello.
Hello.
All right. So you all know my channel. Whenever I have guests on a panel, I like for them to shill their content. So please shill yourselves. Shameless self.
Noodle, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start because I don't have all that much to shill. I do have a YouTube channel, Use Your Noodle, although I don't do much on it, to be honest. But now I have 100 subscribers, I'm going to have to. So I will pick up on that. The one thing I know for definite I have to shill is this Sunday at 1 o'clock UK time on Godless Scummer's channel. We are going to be rounding up. We are going to be having a little after party for our more than a year of Asterix streams, as in Asterix and Obelix books. So if anyone is about on, well, tomorrow and fancies it, give us, pop in, come say hello.
All right. Sam, your turn.
Nice. So I go by Sam Chaos on Twitter, where I scream into the void, and Instagram, where I do nothing. And on YouTube, where primarily at this point I make episodes of Pub Religion, which is a podcast where a pagan, a Christian, and an atheist kind of sit around having a more casual conversation about religious stuff. And we have an episode coming out this week. This week's episode is going to be on most things are not, in fact, sins. And those episodes premiere at 5 Central Time on a Wednesday. And I will stop rambling now because I'm aware I can go on forever.
All right, Alex, you want to take a turn to shill?
What are we doing?
You're self-promoting your content.
Sorry, my ADHD is really bad right now. So I can't say my Twitter and Instagram handle.
Oh, just do it.
Okay, so I think it's. Oh, I need to check which one's what.
So your Twitter is Stone Faggot.
Yeah, my Twitter is Stone Faggot, and then my Instagram is Stone Tranny.
You see why I can't say it?
Yeah. he said the other day, or a couple of weeks ago, that it makes him feel uncomfortable every time he tags me, and I'm like, that's the point. But then I have that non-binary unicorn, which is my political, sex ed, LGBTQ, whatever, channel. And then I also have Alex fucking Lieb. I recently changed the name. It used to be Beautiful Unicorn Cat, which is like makeup vlogs. I started an Etsy, and I now have another channel for that, Unicorn Pride Studio.
Also known as EPS.
Nice.
Yes, it's UPS, and I love that. I didn't mean to do that.
Excellent.
Excellent. Made me happy. Happy quitting getting.
So, there have been recent discussions I've seen on Twitter with, heathens, some atheists jumping in and saying that atheists should not refer to themselves as heathens. And I admitted up front that I'm pretty ignorant on the topic. My understanding of heathen was always anyone that wasn't primarily Catholic or secondarily some kind of Christian. And there's a city fairly close to where we live called Heath, and my mother and I used to still jokingly call them heathens. But I was kind of curious. I wanted a couple of heathens, and full disclosure, Sam and Noodle have each told me that they are not actually heathens, but they.
Yeah, so maybe it's worth kind of giving a bit of background that I am. So me and Noodle are both Hellenists. So we are both polytheists. We reconstruct old belief systems effectively. Noodle being Roman, I think, and me being Greek. But I incorporate elements of Germanic cultures into some of my practices. And that's what heathenry is the old Germanic traditions, so to speak. So I incorporate elements, including the worship of Thor, into my praxis. Yes, I'm the guy who believes in Thor. We'll get that out of the way now. And so I also hang around with a lot of heathens. And when I'm using the word, I'm using it specifically to refer to practitioners of heathenry, those Germanic traditions.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I'm coming from, is that I spend a lot of time around heathens. I know like a general impression of what their thoughts are on stuff, and I am aware of a lot of the issues they face. A lot of pagans and polytheists face some of the same issues, but not to the same extent. So, like, I'm coming at it from there, but there are going to be points at which I might just have to say, I don't know.
No.
Ditto everything Sam just said. I'm also coming at it from the angle of having been a historian and a classicist. So I can possibly shed some historical light on it, but this is not my area of expertise at all. So I will, again, like Sam said, if there's something I don't know, I'm not going to guess. I am just going to categorically say, go find a heathen and ask them. I will also add, there's a discussion we were having before the stream went live with Bub, where we said the definition of a polytheist, any polytheist, regardless of how they identify or what term they use, is incredibly personal, to the point where we gently and lightheartedly, but with a grain of truth to it, I think, said, if you put 10 pagans, heathens, or polytheists in a room and ask them to define their faith, you'll get 12 answers. So please bear that in mind, that I personally am speaking only for myself, my own very limited understanding, and my own observations.
The only thing you can really say of all polytheists is that they believe in multiple gods, however they define that term.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
I apologize if it seems like we might be dragging the disclaimers out a bit. We just want to make sure we're being very clear about where we come from and what we mean here.
You're good. So, yeah, I know there's another definition that people like to use for heathen, and it's people who lived outside the cities in the woods and practiced the old ways, you know, kind of after Christianity took over. You know, so I guess I'm after kind of a more modern thing, because.
Okay, so this is. Do you want me to give you a brief run over of the etymology of the word?
Go for
it. So traditionally, if we go back to when the word was originally used, it was used to mean the common folk, effectively, in Germanic countries. And there's actually, I forget the dates on this, but there was an era that was referred to as the heathen Scandinavian era, in terms of like historical stuff. But as Christians kind of invaded Germanic countries, it became the case that heathen, which was the country folk, became synonymous with the people who don't practice Christianity, which would have explicitly been these Germanic traditions. But because that was what those group of Christians kind of developed, and then those were the Christians who went and invaded other places in order to spread their ideas, it almost turned into like the Christians turned the term heathen into something that just meant non-believer. And then we're not sure exactly on dates, because when I mention the time frame in a minute, you'll see why they weren't necessarily super focused on tracking everything. I've heard early estimates of 1910s and late estimates of early 1940s of when heathenry as a religion became a big thing that was revived beyond like just the odd person. And this is the term generally used because of the etymology of it, but also because of its academic use. And so that's where it's come to mean that, although in mainstream, people still understand it in the very Christian-made sense of the word.
Okay.
Yeah. I think for me, my understanding of the way Christianity has used heathen historically, to give a secular similar example, is almost in the same way the ancient Romans would have called someone a barbarian. To Christians, a heathen is someone who doesn't believe. To Romans, a non-Roman is a barbarian. So it's a term they use to other large swathes of people with largely little interest in actually knowing or caring whether all those people were even part of a unified group. So it's always been a fairly loaded term, and
yeah. My usage of the word heathen, and I suspect Noodles would be, I don't know if necessarily identical, but very similar, would be anyone who practices a Germanic tradition, because you did specifically ask for like a more modern thing. So any pagans or polytheists who practice primarily Anglo-Saxon, Icelandic, Norse, take your pick of any of kind of the Germanic traditions.
Wait, pagan is Germanic?
No,
I'm very ignorant on the subject.
Oh, you're all good. So there are pagans and polytheists of specific groups. So there are people who practice Norse polytheism who refer to themselves as pagans. Okay. There are also Greek polytheists who refer to themselves as pagans. Now, I know as a historian, Noodle has opinions here.
Noodle has opinions. Yes, the term pagan is not. Has a very similar history to the term heathen, insofar as it was a term applied to a peoples rather than one they created for themselves, and it was used to other them as non-urban polytheists by a culture that perhaps didn't treat them with the respect they deserved. I'm being very careful in my wording here. For me, a pagan is, I treat pagan as an umbrella term. So if someone, although I don't use the term personally, if someone used it to refer to me and they weren't being, pointedly insulting, I wouldn't take it as an insult. Nor would I take it as anything other than them just using the word they know to describe me.
So I primarily use the word pagan to describe myself, because using polytheism as a term for me gets weird and complicated and is its own discussion.
Yeah. I will say for me, my understanding is we're all polytheists. Some of us like the word pagan, some of us don't.
Yeah, and then you've got
there are
heathens,
pagans, and there are other polytheists or other pagans. Yeah. So we're all pagans, but we're not all heathens, or we're all polytheists, but we're not all heathens.
Now, it should also be noted that atheopagans exist, people who are both atheists and pagans.
Yeah, I'm going to let you speak on that one, Sam, because that's not something I'm particularly.
Yeah, so that's. So atheopaganism would purely and simply be people who do not believe the gods are external entities that exist in the world, but still practice the traditions, either because they believe that the gods are psychological constructs or because they believe the practices are emotionally useful, or for whatever reason they still practice these traditions, even if they don't believe the gods exist as their own separate entities.
Okay.
They sound like the polytheist version of non-practicing Catholics to me.
Well, sort of.
Or cultural Jews, cultural Muslims, cultural Catholics, whatever that's what that sounds like to me. Just hearing that definition for the first time.
Sure. I mean, a lot of them still like actively seek ritual, so I don't know that it's quite the same, but it's similar.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, I think we've done all the disclaimers at this point. Is there anything else you want to define or want to clarify before we proceed, Sam?
I just kind of want to make sure that I'm tracking real quick before we get too far ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
So, heathen has pretty much always been kind of a loaded term that sort of othered people, but Christians took it a step further with that when they kind of took the term and used it to describe.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would go so far as to say that at specific points in history, you could probably say that a Christian using the term heathen would be tantamount to a slur. It was a term designed to other non-Christians.
Yeah, it's a bit of a. It was originally like almost a slur towards one group, and then it became like almost a slur to like a larger group, and then sometimes it's been a slur, and sometimes it might not have been. So that gets a bit weird, but yes, generally speaking, yes.
Yeah, I will point out as well the word pagan has almost tracks very similar to that. You can say that about the word pagan as well. Which is partially the reason I personally don't use the identity term. But if people aren't malicious, I don't take it as malicious because I don't expect everyone to know, 8,000 years of history about my faith.
My treatment of the word pagan is very much like my usage of the word queer. I use the word queer to describe myself. I'm not going to use the word queer to describe everyone who it might have traditionally fallen under that umbrella because it was a slur. And
I'm going to wait for them to tell me whether I can use it for them or not. Yeah, that's a very good equivalency to draw, I think.
Especially because I identify as both.
Agree with that, yeah. But yeah, I think that's everything. Ring did ask in the chat, like how Muslims have Muslims, people of the book, and everyone else. I think that's a reference to me saying how certain terms are used to other people. So
that's when that was thrown in, yeah.
Yeah, so that to me, that's a fair example as well. If you have Muslims who have people of the book who they're kind of okay with, and they're all worshipping the same God and they recognize that, and then they have everyone else, or Jews have Gentiles, Christians and non-Christians. It is just that they are not in the in group. That's what these terms have been used kind of historically to mean.
Okay. So, and I'm reading the comments here really quick. Okay. Feel heathen would be like the Norwegian word vantro. Maybe I'm saying that right. I'm probably saying it wrong. That pretty much means someone that believes in the wrong stuff, and some Christians would use for me as an atheist.
In the sense that it developed in I want to say the 12th or 13th century, but don't quote me on that. But when it happened to be that Christians were changing their usage of the word, that's what it morphed into, yes.
Yeah. I don't speak Norwegian, so I can't comment on what that word means, but taking that
as it's written
there, yes, although I would also like to point out that the word atheist also means exactly that. So the word atheist originated as a term for those who did not follow the state religion.
Originally, Christians were considered atheists.
Yeah, there was a time when Christians were atheists. So I don't want to call them synonyms because they've developed across very different historical perspectives, but they have a similarity.
Okay.
At various points in history, they may have been used interchangeably, but that doesn't necessarily make that correct or accurate.
They follow the same pattern.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Ring. The issue is Germanic polytheists have reclaimed it, and atheists trying to yoink it muddies the waters, or at least that's how I understand it.
Yoink.
So, broadly speaking, yes, I think that gets into a point I want to make a little bit further on. So, can I maybe suggest, unless Noodle wants to pass comment, that I personally put a pin in that?
I'm going to say, I'm also going to add my pin to Sam's, but I'm going to say broadly, yes, we will get into it, Rig.
Yeah.
All right. So,
and as to what native atheists said, it's not believing the wrong stuff as in disagreeing. It's believing the wrong stuff as in it's not culturally acceptable to believe that. So while I'm a polytheist and I think that them believing in atheism would be not correct to ontology, that wouldn't be equivalent because I don't see an issue with people being atheists.
I don't use the words different and wrong interchangeably. Just because you believe something different to me doesn't necessarily mean that you are wrong. You must always believe what's right for you. And this is something I hold very dear as a polytheist. I don't proselytize. I don't. My faith is very personal.
If you ever find a preachy pagan or polytheist, you should probably direct them my way.
Yeah, direct them Sam's way. Sam knows sort of a lot more of the technical aspects than I do. But also, just in general, my faith doesn't call for it. My gods are strong enough that they don't need little old me defending them. They can handle themselves.
I've never actually seen a polytheist proselytize at all. Thinking about it.
The only time I've seen it, I will say, it's usually in the first 3 to 6 months of someone discovering a form of paganism or polytheism for the first time. And I've seen it a few times with Wiccans when they're first getting into it. But there is a line between I'm just excited, I want to talk about this new novel thing, and proselytizing, which some of them may cross inadvertently, but I don't think it's deliberate.
Yeah.
Okay. So the perspective that I had before talking about this, thank you for biting me.
I need my TV ring.
Yeah, it's somewhere around here. I think
It needs cleaned because so I have a teething ring because I'm autistic and I need to bite on stuff. Actually, I have
Don't worry, I have a teething necklace because I'm dyspraxic. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, someone just recently bought me. I'm waiting for it to come in, but it's one of the chewable ones specific to autistic people. And
yeah,
fucking Oreo. But anyways, like, are you okay?
Yeah, no, sorry, I'm just knocked something over. It's fine.
I personally just use hoodies.
My dog, my OCD won't let me. I need to chew on something specific to chewing. But my dog thought that it was her toy. She did that last night because I have technically, it's a narwhal I use as a STEM toy. That's technically a dog toy. So it has a squeaker in it.
Yeah.
I made the mistake of squeaking it in front of her.
Yeah.
Now it has a hole up the butt. I can't find my sewing kit.
Whoopsie. Yeah, don't squeak a STEM toy in front of a dog. Pro tip, folks.
I didn't think about it. Most of my STEM toys that are stuffed animals, or like I have a kid's toy that's one of those caterpillars that have like all this different stuff on it. That has a squeaker apple shaped thing hanging from it. I didn't know it squeaked. So she went to nibble on it just to be like, hey, play with me. And it squeaked. And she went from cute little play with me to ripping it out of my lap. I was not happy. I also have a ball that has like, it's like one of those calming balls that have stuff in it that you shake and watch it settle.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. She thought it was her toy ball.
Oh.
I'm like, I can't be mad at you because that's cute, but fucking stop.
He's just like, I love you very much, and so I will not be cross, but fuck.
Yeah. Oh, the other day she was chewing on the ball and like it has liquid in it, obviously. And I thought she was gonna break it, and I was nonverbal. I was in the middle of a nonverbal episode.
Oh, that's not fun.
Okay, here we go.
Scoochie.
Yeah, that's like the downfall of having one of those plastic mats so your chair can actually roll around on a carpet.
You hit me in the face with the chair.
Pretty much.
Now, I feel like this kind of goes without saying, but for the sake of having made sure we're definitely all on the same page, are we all agreed that words tend to have usages as opposed to definitive definitions? None of us are linguistic prescriptivists.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't want to go down the prescriptivist route, please, because...
Yeah, I just wanted to like make sure that, because I've occasionally had that happen where someone will be like, oh no, words have definitive meanings.
No, I'm a historian. I fully understand that words' meanings change in the span of a couple of decades sometimes.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, well, I mean, even shorter than that, apparently, if someone says you're capping, it means you're lying.
I don't know. I remember when Wicked used to be a witch, and then for a while it was really cool, and now I don't know what it is. Just as an example.
For me, this has always been a cap. So
yeah, that's a cap to me.
Ah, yes.
Maybe the top of a bottle, like the top of a beer bottle. Beer cap, but that's about it. So yeah.
I have seen some people get greatly confused when they hear me talking to one of my friends, and then my mate just goes, "No cap."
No, I have one. What are you talking about?
Yeah. We use words to attempt to communicate concepts, but our understanding of those concepts change, I think, is my general approach to language and linguistics.
Yeah.
Now, if you ask me about the definition of an ancient language word, I will give you the Little Scott Jones and a full description, but that's because that's an ancient word that we have, that we literally use dictionary definitions for to understand the concepts trying to be communicated.
Also, Ring is correct, and as is MCU Thor. All words are in fact made up.
Yes.
No. It's just sound we've ascribed meaning to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So prior to this, the discussion and this 15-minute long intro we had where we discussed the definitions and caveats, and I probably would have said something along the lines of it doesn't actually matter, and it can include atheists too, but after this I'm starting to lean the other way. It's like maybe that's wrong.
Fair. So maybe it's worth us getting into why it does matter then.
Yeah. Because if we agree it matters to an extent, we then have to have a discussion on what that extent is and where we meet and where we don't on that. Because I fully accept that we're all going to have different opinions on this to an extent as well.
Yeah.
The mindset I usually have. Sorry.
Oh no, still going, Alex.
Oh, the mindset I usually have is if someone who is a heathen tells me, hey, this is not how you use the word, I'll stop using it because I feel like heathens are a marginalized group, and I'm not about to tell them. That'd be like telling, this cishet person telling me what is and is not homophobic, or like me telling a black person what is and is not racist.
Welcome to the internet.
Yeah.
Welcome to the internet.
I that, though. Of course,
Yeah.
I have my moments. I kind of did a fucking rookie whenever the whole heathen discussion recently started up, and I was kind of like, "That's stupid." But then I very quickly was just,
Yeah, just like, hey, so long as we're trying not to be dicks, I don't see there's much more we can do.
yeah. But that's always the mindset I have when a marginalized group says something, because I feel like it's pretty fucked to be like, "Oh, well, you're wrong." You're wrong
Yeah,
in your impression.
I will say categorically, and I say this regarding gender, sexuality, race, ethnicity, and any other aspect of your identity, that there are multiple possibilities for you to draw from. Your choice of identity is absolutely your own decision, so long as you are not using it to harm anyone else.
Yeah.
And I say that as a bisexual, aspec, AFAB, gender fluid, mixed race. It's a long list of of terms I've had to fight for my right to use, essentially.
Yeah.
So I think I might be far and away the oldest person in this live stream. What is AFAB?
Old man.
Assigned female at birth.
Oh, I'm AFAB.
Okay.
I'm AFAB.
Okay. Yeah, I have trouble keeping up with the acronyms. I can't possibly keep in my head what they all mean. So
AMAB and AFAB are assigned male at birth and assigned female at birth.
Okay.
Not to be confused with ACAB, which is all cops are bastards.
Well, I'm also that too, but that's a totally different stream and conversation.
My dyslexia confuses AFAB and ACAB because I see the same word at first. I have to really focus, and I'm like, so it really messes with me. The other day I was talking to someone, and I was like, yeah, I'm ACAB.
Well, yes, but also no, because that's not what we're talking about right now.
See, this is why I tend to say AMAB and AFAB for gender.
Yeah.
And while I know what ACAB is, I do also sometimes default to CHWDP, which is the Polish equivalent of ACAB. And is I'm not going to say what it means, but you can Google it. Just be warned, it's not polite. It's a lot less generic than the English version.
Yeah.
So Ring says, I thought you were military bubs. I was.
Ring, so were you, but we all know how polite and like you are as well. So, you know.
Yeah. So it's been about half an hour, and we really haven't touched on the actual.
Yeah, no, we've kind of laid groundwork and chatted a bit.
A lot of groundwork.
If anyone wants to know why any textbook you pick up has a 50-page introduction, you've just sat through the 50-page introduction.
Yeah, pretty much. Noodle, do you want to talk about kind of some of the issues that you see with, like, how do words?
Don't ask me, I'm dyslexic.
We were saying maybe we should kind of go into some of the issues that come up when people sometimes try and use the word heathen in a broader sense.
Yeah, so, I mean, for me, I will state my general overarching opinion of this is you have the word atheist. Atheist has its own history, and if you are buying into that, you should be proud of that, and you should definitely understand what you are, involving yourself in. And to then take a term that belongs to a minority group who are fighting to reclaim it, when, yes, you are a minority, but you are not as much a minority as that group, I find troublesome. And so for me, my understanding of it is essentially think about the person you're speaking to and the people you are potentially hurting or potentially upsetting with your word usage, regardless of what it is. And I think that, for me, is my overarching opinion of all of this. For me, the term heathen is a very specific term and is a religious term in the same way I wouldn't assume that every white person from America is a Christian. I wouldn't apply a term for a specific religion to a broad swathe of people just because they had similar histories. There are set words for that for a reason.
Yeah. So I will also throw out there that there are other terms that get used generally. So apostate tends to mean someone who's left a religion, though I find that it's actually the way it's used is quite often just to mean people who are not part of major religions. And so that is functionally the same as the way people want to use the word heathen is something I will throw out there, even if they do say it's not just for atheists, it's for people collectively, is that the word apostate exists for a reason as well.
Yeah. Now, if you have I'm not going to sit here and tell any atheist if this has ever happened to them that, because if they've been attacked by someone who was Christian or monotheist and called a heathen for being atheist, I'm not going to then tell them that they can't reclaim that traumatic experience. What I am going to say, though, is consider that you may be passing on a similar, not a similar level of violence if it's not a physical attack, but you may be doing violence to someone inadvertently, and you should consider that.
So I will put out there in terms of, because I think Noodle discussed quite well the why the usage, an issue that can come up with the usage of the term in terms of the term itself's functionality. But if I could go into a second, maybe the things that come up for heathens as a result of atheists using the word heathen.
Okay.
So the big one is a difficulty finding sources, especially decent sources. Heathens have a big problem of racists, a word beginning with N from the 1940s, and white supremacists using the word heathen, whether or not they are heathen.
Yeah.
And this results in a lot of their stuff being diluted anyway. And when atheists are such a vastly bigger group than heathens, the fact that a significant number of atheists use the word heathen makes trying to find decent resources very difficult, especially when the loudest people are the sort of people we definitely don't want them finding the resources of. And so it makes it very difficult because then you've got to go, not only is this person a nationalist and white supremacist, but also is this person an atheist? And commonly enough, the people who have heathen in their name, if they are an atheist, are the sort of anti-theist who will turn around and say, all religion is bad, therefore you deserve to suffer, in my experience. And so because this is a thing that, even if it's not actually the majority of people, atheists who use the word heathen like that, it comes into a situation where if someone else describes themselves as a heathen, you still don't know if you found someone you can speak to. Yeah. And it comes to a point where it can feel very, very isolating, especially if you don't know anyone who's openly any sort of pagan, let alone heathen, in person. And so that level of isolation that it can cause and that difficulty of finding good resources, I think is actually actively harmful. And I acknowledge that it can sound like it's potentially like a dumb thing if you don't understand the scale of it. But like when I tried to look for heathen stuff, the amount of things that were like talk heathen and a bunch of Twitter users with heathen in their name and then anti-theist or atheist in their bio, trying to find actual heathens is a pain in the arse.
Yeah. I will say, just to give you a hypothetical equivalent, if you like, imagine if there was a denomination of Christianity called atheism. and then trying to find other actual atheists.
Especially if
But
it was
that
bigger status
denomination
for them
only called
Baptists.
themselves atheists jokingly. That's the situation I get the impression a lot of heathens are in. And I had very similar when I went looking for pagans, because it's such a broad umbrella term. But I also did find my fair share of atheists and anti-theists using the term flippantly, and I think with a lack of understanding of what they were potentially tapping into. I do want to touch on something Sam said about the availability of sources. Now, this is something that anyone who is attempting to reconstruct a pre-Christian religion is going to find in sort of the global West. And yeah, in the Middle East as well, at least, that our sources come to us through a monotheist lens to various extents, depending on what kind of polytheism you follow. The Norse Edda, which is generally the main text for heathens, if I'm correct.
You've got both the poetic and the what's the other one called? Well, there's two Eddas, but yes,
Yeah,
they are
there's
your
two Eddas. Yeah, the poetic and the prose Edda, isn't it?
yes, those are the ones. Unless you're going for something like Anglo-Saxon, those are going to be your primary sources, and even then Anglo-Saxon have like Saxo Grammaticus and maybe a couple of other bits like Snorri Sturluson.
Heathens are battling the fact that the only versions of those texts that we have were translated or written down, I say those words in inverted commas, by a Christian monk who was
Alternatively, that were written from scratch by a Christian monk. That happened with one of the Eddas.
That's also as well. So it is. As a Hellenic polytheist, I know that a lot of the texts from Hellenic philosophy and religion were first translated into Persian, or the written Persian languages, Arabic, things like that, and then later translated back into Greek. I know that. But they were translated for very specific historical academic purposes, whereas the heathen texts were translated for different, very specific purposes that were not necessarily purely academic. They were written down with we can see in extracts of them where these Christians have attempted to self-insert their God, or alter the text to make it more Christianized.
Yeah. I think,
and that's the serious problem heathens deal with, and it's not a small issue.
I think it might be good to kind of check in with Bob and Alex that if they have any kind of things to say, because I know me and Noodle have just bounced off each other for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
That's sort of what I anticipated and wanted, because I mean, this isn't really my discussion, because I'm
fair, but you might have questions that we've missed.
Well, I mean, my thing is that I'm not really in a community that's too badly affected by this, and I figured that, I mean, you two have already said that you're not actually heathens, but you each know more heathens than I do and have more impressions from them, so you can speak better to how the discussion impacts them. So that's what I was going for. But I kind of want to touch back on Sam, you talking about having resources, and I kind of got two impressions from that. The most prominent one I got was kind of a sense of community. Atheists going by heathen kind of muddied the water and made it more difficult to find other people who actually fit the category and can talk to. Because as small as the atheist community is, I am given to understand that the heathen community is considerably smaller. And the other impression I got was for resources like information on the thing, on heathenism.
Yes. Yes. So the thing is that if you know you're looking for the prose Edda and the poetic Edda, that's all well and good. But because they were written by a Christian, trying to work out how to translate that into what were the actual practices of these people, that requires some historical know-how. And unless you have a history degree, you're going to need to find someone who has already broken down how to go about it for you.
Yeah. And a lot of pre-Christian faiths as well, we don't just use textual sources. We find evidence in material culture, archaeology, oral traditions that were broken by the growth of the Christian church. So a lot was lost because it was only oral tradition that kept it.
I get far more excited than I could have possibly imagined a few years ago when I see on the news something like, oh, this Norse excavation site found some fragment of something.
Oh, yeah, there was a thing at Suffolk a couple of weeks ago. Was it Suffolk or Sheffield? And I think I read about 10 articles in an hour because I was just, I wanted to know more. And it's not even my faith, it's just I'm that curious. So I can imagine it's even more so for others. I'm quite lucky as a Hellenist that most of ancient Greece is, you can see it. It's there. It's visible.
Bub, you used the phrase muddying the water, which brings me back kind of to where we put a pin in Ring's comment earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let me find that just so we can... was it this comment?
Was it the
Ring?
The yoink one?
One Ring 42.
Oh, sorry.
The yoink one, yes.
Yoink!
Yes. Yoink.
There's some words that I just
I
really
just have
like.
to find it again.
Yeah.
Okay, all the way back at the top. Obviously, I've gone too far.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what it said was the issue is Germanic polytheists have reclaimed it, and atheists trying to yoink it muddies the waters, or at least that's how I understand it, was what Ring said there. And I think that while this is the case, I think that the kind of thing to point out here is that we still live in a Christian and culturally Christian primarily culture, meaning that the Christian usage of the word is still the primary understanding of the word. But then if you've got a culture where the primary understanding of the word atheist is demon worshipper, like, for example, the church I grew up in, that's just not going to fly.
Yeah, and I will say it's the use of heathen to describe someone who is not a heathen, for me, it's a colonizer's term. And the colonizers in that situation are the majority Christian cultural, the people who are using Christian cultural terms, because the Christian culture is the colonizer in that situation.
And so I think it's worth pointing out that I can understand atheists who don't know about heathens, because obviously heathenry is so small, a significant portion of atheists might never have heard of a heathen, let alone met one. You're going to come to a point that some of them are going to try and reclaim it because it was used to target them. But when Germanic polytheists and Germanic pagans are trying to use that term, I think it's sort of I think the big point that I'd want to make there is that it is a term that really they need and they're going to use. And so while the common usage of the term now is that which a lot of atheists are trying to say, no, we should stay with this one, that's not how Christians didn't use the word atheist the way atheists use the word atheist. So that's relatively inconsistent there, but also it's like none of the heathens who I've spoken to about this are saying atheists should never use the word heathen to describe themselves in like a passing comment or whatever. It's when it's in names or in titles of shows or it's stupidly frequent. such that it makes it harder to find resources and stuff. Like, if it's said in a humorous way, poking fun at the Christians or whatever, like if you greet a group of atheists or atheists and pagans mixed or whatever, hi heathens, like whatever. I still occasionally use the word heathen in that sense.
Yeah.
But the broad usage of it in that way is the big problem.
I think I would employ something akin to a 5-second rule of, if I meet you and you call yourself a heathen and I don't know within 5 seconds whether that means heathen or that means atheist, you need to clarify and you need to make that more obvious. And that's, you're using the term, so that's on you to define it. There is a question in the chat that I want to address from Native Atheist, who asked what our definition of a heathen is. I'm going to answer, this is going to sound more flippant than it is, but I have a one-word answer for that, which is irrelevant. I am neither heathen nor atheist.
See,
my definition is not relevant.
They did then go, oh, I see, maybe in that context, I'm not a heathen. Yeah, so the general usage of the term, though it's not necessarily a definition, is people who use old Germanic faith traditions, be they referring to themselves as pagan, atheo-pagan, polytheist, or whatever, that kind of general group of people. And so while there are, the next question that Native Atheist asked is, while there are different contexts for using it, and that is true, the context in which a lot of people are trying to insist on using it is a context which is harmful. And so that is where it becomes a bit of a thing of me going, like, as a non-heathen, like, using the term as though it did apply to me, because the way a lot of atheists want to try and apply it, it would probably also apply to me. I don't think I should be using that term, because that's going to cause them a bunch of trouble. And it comes into a bit of a position of, it just feels like, besides the odd comment or whatever, and using it in that context, it makes sense for to try and shift the language that we have, and to like try and consciously make that shift in language, because we've done it before. To try and make a conscious shift in language to that being our primary definition, in order to make it significantly easier.
Can I be really blunt and draw an equivalency to something else I've experienced? This debate between atheists and heathens regarding this reminds me a lot of the debate in the LGBT communities between people who identify as bisexual and pansexual.
Don't get me started on that.
Yeah, that's three of us having rants immediately.
So what I'm getting at is, we are all on the same side, and it's semantics that are separating us right now. So for the sake of a peaceful life, and for the sake of bringing the community together and lifting up the people in your community who are minorities and who do struggle with set situations, why is it so difficult for you to change a term that you use? It's a word. Why are you... Now, I need to understand why atheists seem, and I say seem because, you know, we know what Twitter's like, seem to be so attached to the word heathen. What is the attachment there?
I will also throw out that for anyone who doesn't know, polytheists and pagans don't tend to give a shit if you're an atheist. And the political trends amongst both atheists and non-white supremacist polytheists and pagans, the trends there tend to be very similar. There's a lot we can ally on. Yeah. It's just really difficult if one group is going to try and make the other group's life difficult.
Yeah.
Were you going to ask a question there, Alex?
No, I'm just dying.
Yeah.
I have a fever of, what did I say, 99.8?
Yeah, something.
I got my COVID vaccine yesterday, and the nurse said that it's reacting terribly to the medicine that I take. So I'm essentially I'm having severe COVID symptoms.
And for people who are not used to Fahrenheit, 99.8 equates to 37.67-ish Celsius.
Yeah, so it's like it's a low grade fever at this point, but it's killing you at the same time because it's
Plus, I have chronic illnesses, and I feel like, and the nurse did tell me to expect this, so I was slightly prepared. My symptoms to the COVID vaccine are triggering all of my chronic illnesses all at once, which also, of course, since I feel like shit physically, my mental illnesses are triggered too.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like I'm dying.
Yeah.
Sorry if I.
Well, you're good to come on a stream because I literally ducked out of streams after I'm in a very similar situation to you. Chronic illnesses and mental health issues, and I ducked out of streams for 3 days when I had my COVID jab. So, yeah.
I'm used to my mother. She doesn't believe that chronic illnesses exist, which is great. She also doesn't believe in mental illnesses. So I'm used to having to act like I don't have them. So I'm high functioning in that case. I don't like.
Yeah, you're masking.
Yeah, essentially. But I also feel like shit to where I'm masking the best I can, but at the same time, I'm still showing shit because it's that bad.
Yep, no, that's fair enough. I wish you all the best with it. I hope it clears quick for you. Just glad it's just the jab and it's not actually COVID because I presume that would be worse.
So we both had it. There was one point when I had COVID. It was so bad. Like, I was mostly just in bed sleeping, but I was so bad I couldn't even ask Bub to take me to the hospital because I just physically couldn't talk for a bit.
Wow.
So it's great.
Yeah.
That's second shot because it's probably going to be the same thing. I'm probably going to have to go through this again. Yeah.
But at least you know your immune system's kicked in and it's doing its job.
Which is rare.
No, it's one of those, isn't it? There's a great quote I came across once that said, "Pain is your body telling you you're still alive."
Just stop telling me. I don't need the reminder. I sat
that's a mood. And
that's a mood.
There've been a couple of comments in chat, kind of as we've been going through, to the effect of the atheists use it because Christians use it for them. And while I agree, more the point of this conversation is, could we please try and shift the definition away from what Christians are trying to put on you and more towards what's going to be constructive? And I know the general thing back is, well, I don't see how it affects us, but it doesn't have to affect us to affect someone. And especially if we're going to try and ally on anything, especially political issues, we could do to at least be on the same page about who's who here.
Yeah, I'm just going to say as well, as atheists, your entire identity within this community is that you don't care what Christians think of you.
Yeah.
So why the hell are you using the word Christians have used for you? Please explain the logic of that to me. Yes, I appreciate your reclaiming it, but there comes a point where you've kind of got to say, if you really don't care about what Christians think, why, especially when you're actively doing harm to another community that uses the same term. Because as Sam said, if I go searching for heathens now, say on Twitter, and type in the word heathen, the first 20 results are going to be atheists. And then I might get lucky and find a heathen who I then have to look at and work out, are they a racist or not?
That's fun.
It would be much easier, and it would be very kind of the atheist community, who are the majority in that situation, for them to say, you know what, let's remove those first 20 people from the search so it's a bit easier. And then there's like 15 people left, and then at least you can focus on making sure you're not dealing with fascists. That's all heathens are asking here, is stay in your lane, essentially. And help us not to accidentally veer off into your lane when we're looking for our own.
Here's the other thing that kind of comes to mind for me. Another thing a lot of atheists tend to put emphasis on is empathy and not doing harm to other groups because, we understand what it's like. Even though that kind of begins to trip more into sympathy. The idea that we want to be treated with empathy, but some of us, while making that demand, are unwilling to grant the same thing to another marginalized group, actually probably a more marginalized group because you're quite a bit smaller. That doesn't track with me. I don't get it.
This is why, and I'm going to say this absolutely honestly and from the heart, but this is why, despite the fact that I'm polytheist and you've stated categorically to me you're anti-theist, I have absolute respect for you. And this is why when you said to me, do you want to come on here? I said yes, because I trust that you, as I've been saying from the start, you put the people first. Because, there are certain people who, not necessarily in the community I'm mixing or anyone who's in the chat, but who I would have been very wary to have this discussion with, knowing they were an anti-theist. Because I would have expected them to provide a very Christian worldview without necessarily considering the human beings at the other end of it, regardless of their own faith. And what you've done is you've created a platform here. Don't get me wrong, I would have liked to see actual atheists, actual heathens discussing it, but we deal with what we've got.
We do our best.
we do our best with what we've got.
I did reach out. It's just,
Yeah. And I think the fact that I trusted that you did try and reach out without even having to ask you, because I appreciate that you are looking for, you're genuinely asking, and you seem like a genuine bloke. And this is all we're asking, is just be genuine with us. There was this same discussion with an atheist community I was in at university where they used the term pagan to describe themselves. And all the same issues Sam is brought up regarding heathens are the same issues that was causing for local pagans in the area. And they were a university society who, the pagan society, and then in subtitles, a group of like-minded atheists, which, how universities are. There's all faiths and none are on there on the campus. So trying to find anything. And they were a bigger group than the actual polytheist groups. And so they drowned them out. Whether deliberately or not, that's what happened. And we do get to the point where the outcome, regardless of your intention, has to be considered. And the outcome is you're talking over a group that is a minority compared to you. And therefore you need to consider whether that's who you want to be as a person. And that's kind of my whole takeaway from this is, if any atheist who uses that term, absolutely, you have the right to use it. You have the right to use it to reclaim it. You have the right to use it in a jocular manner to take the mickey out of Christians, because I'm sure we've all done that once or twice. You have the right to use it in its historical context of Christians used it against you and now you're taking it back. You have all those rights, but you also have the responsibility to heathens, polytheists and pagans who are standing with you on serious political and social issues to not make us feel unwelcome if you want our allyship. Now, we are natural allies against Christians. We are. Against monotheist culture, we are natural allies because we have all rebelled against that in some way, shape or form. But all we're asking you to do is shuffle down the table. We're not asking you to,
leave your seat,
make any radical changes. We're just saying, give us a chance here, please.
See, I actually really love you for phrasing it the way you did. Yes, you have the right, but you also have the responsibility. I fucking love that.
Yeah.
Because you can't really have one without the other.
Exactly. And I'm sure Ring is in the chat frantically typing a Spider-Man reference as we speak.
I was about to say something Uncle Ben.
Yes, something Uncle Ben. But that's my whole opinion on it. Of anything you do in life, you have the right to do, but you also have the responsibility to consider the implications and the impact of it. And you need to decide whether you can live with yourself. No one else can decide that for you.
Right.
And, you know, I think, was it Pirates of the Caribbean where he said it's not surviving, it's living with yourself? That's also a fair point. Not what you expect from a you know, sword and board Disney movie, but it is a fair point. True. That my conscience is clear, is yours, is essentially what this question boils down to.
The other very important quote from Pirates of the Caribbean is, "I got a jar of dirt."
Nobody move. I dropped my brain. This is what happens when you get people who have difficulty focusing on the stream.
Yes. Yes, you've got lots of neurodivergence around here.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've still got a little bit of COVID brain, so my head's kind of been batting around from different, completely unrelated to this things.
Noodle, have we hit all the points you wanted to? I think I've hit pretty much everything I wanted to talk about.
I think I have. I think what I've just said is essentially a roundup of my opinion on the matter, which is make sure you can live with yourself, and can you live with yourself knowing you're harming other people?
Alex, Bub, did either of you two have any questions that you have come up or that you think we've not necessarily addressed?
I'm gonna be honest, my ADHD kicked in, and I don't even know what we're talking about anymore.
This is valid.
This is fair.
So I don't know if I have any questions.
Well, if you think of them, you're welcome to poke me on Twitter.
Yeah, same for me as well. If anyone's got any questions, you can prod me on Twitter. But as I said, I'm not a heathen, so any specific questions you've got about heathenry, the only person I can recommend for that is go see Ocean Kaltoy, I think Aleakai does some stuff on heathenry as well, although I think Aleakai is a Hellenist.
Aleakai is a Hellenist. She's previously gone, "Hey, the heathens have said this." Like, if you come to me with a question specifically about heathenry, I'll probably just go, "Here's a good heathen to ask about that specific topic."
Yeah. Whereas I'm saying right now, the only heathen I know who would probably be good to ask about that is Ocean. So go ask Ocean.
Actually, I do have a question. What's the term you used? You might have already defined this, but I'm like the most neurodivergent person you'll ever fucking meet. So, what is a Hellenish?
Hellenists.
Hellenists are people who are polytheist. We worship multiple deities. And Hellenism is specifically the form of polytheism that originated in ancient Greece.
Oh, okay.
And to some extent Rome, but that depends how far you want to stretch it.
That's because Rome syncretized a lot with ancient Greece, though. So
yeah,
that's where that comes from.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, you said it a couple times, but my brain just
you're all good.
Processed the word you were saying.
It's fine. Sometimes it's like 10 minutes later. Wait a minute, what was that word?
Oh, more often than not, it's 10 minutes later, and then I'm like,
yeah.
So I actually, like I just said, I'm probably the most neurodivergent person you'll meet. I just found out I'm colorblind. That's neurodivergency. Obviously, ADHD and autism. I also have dyslexia and dyscalculia. So, like, I know there's something else, but I suck at making lists. I just found out.
That sounds like dyspraxia to me.
I just found out how
neurodivergent.
Neurodivergent.
Point proven.
Yeah, I mean, I have autism, probably ADHD, mild dyspraxia. I'm aphantasic.
What's
Dyspraxia.
Dyspraxia.
Dyspraxia. There we go.
that I was diagnosed with dyspraxia nearly getting on for 7-8 years ago now, and it explained a lot. Is all I have to say on that. And then those are the neurodivergences before you even get into mental health conditions.
People tend to characterize it as a thing that makes you clumsy, but it actually does an awful lot more than that. I don't know if Noodle, you would want to briefly go into what dyspraxia functionally does.
Yeah, for me, functionally, if you consider what most people imagine the autism spectrum is, which is, everything from, and I hate to use this example, but everything from Rain Man through to quote unquote high functioning Asperger's.
Yeah.
Dyspraxia is kind of on the Asperger's end of the autism spectrum. It does do things like sometimes I will go non-verbal or lose words or get confused. I am clumsy as well. My handwriting is atrocious. I will start a sentence and not remember what I wanted to finish it with.
Sounds like me.
You see the flappy hands you're doing right there? We all do it. We talk with our hands. That's a thing. We talk with our hands.
I've been doing it the whole time, but you guys can't see.
Yeah, same.
To the list of shit I need to talk to my doctor person about for my brain. What's that shit called?
Therapist.
No, I was talking
psychologist.
No, the brain doctor, not the therapist.
Neurologist.
Neurologist.
I want to talk to her about it and be like, hey, this is a fucking thing. Is this another thing to add to the list?
I will send you some resources for dyspraxia if I remember, because dyspraxia may make me forget.
Because, oh my god, that sounds like me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so are we kind of wanting to touch on anything else, or are we about done? What are you guys thinking there, then?
I think we pretty much hit on all of it we can. Short of having people who are heathens on.
Fair.
Maybe one day we can have a live stream with the heathens. They just need to get back to you.
Yeah.
I would be very interested to see actual heathens and their take on this. That is one thing I will say. I'm glad you reached out to them. I wish someone had have responded. Hopefully us coming on and you being so genuine will encourage them to answer your call next time. Because I will hands up say I will vouch and say Bob might be an anti-theist, but he's genuine. He's one of the good ones, and you can talk to him and have a discussion. So yeah, I'm fine with that.
I will say I follow a lot of heathens, and I feel like at least the ones who have talked about it that I've seen, they've all pretty much said that atheists shouldn't really be using it the way they are. Obviously, I know they're gonna have different people are gonna have different views, obviously. But all the ones that I've seen, all the ones I consider friends, have said not to use it, which is why I stopped using it. Like my old Instagram was godless heathen for crying out loud, and I stopped using,
Yeah. I mean, for me, if you're going to use the term, make it explicit, especially if you're going to use it in a title, make it explicit that you're not actually a heathen. So as you said, you were godless heathen. No one is looking at that and thinking that you are a Norse pagan.
Yeah.
However, if you call yourself, the happy heathen or the whatever, people are going to have to look and figure that out.
Yeah.
That don't make them do that extra work, essentially.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think it's about that time to come to a close. I know that the UK is about 5 hours ahead of me, so it's hang on. There it is. I was having trouble mathing right there.
I felt that.
So, another thing I like to do with my channel, I like to start and finish the same way. So, could my guests please show themselves again?
You first this time, Sam.
Okay, sure. I am on Twitter, where it's Screaming to the Void. I'm on Instagram, where I don't do anything yet. We'll see what happens there. And on YouTube, I occasionally post edited content, but primarily it is the Pub Religion podcast, which is a pagan, a Christian, and an atheist sitting around and having casual chats about religion. in a more informal setting, and new episodes of that premiere every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Central Time. And this week's is going to be about like not everything's a sin, like a bunch of things that people refer to as sins. Nope. And that's about it from me, I think.
Cool.
Noodle?
Cool. Yeah, I am going to be on Godless Scummer's channel tomorrow, rounding up our Asterix and Obelix stream. So do join us if you're free at 1 o'clock UK time in the afternoon. I also know that One Ring is about to roll initiative on their weekly D&D game on their channel, probably in the next 20 minutes to half an hour, I would expect. So if you want something totally different and a bit more fun, head on over there. I used to be part of that game, but I ducked out for personal reasons, but it is fun. And just be aware with that D&D, it's an in-joke that they don't talk about their war crimes. So enjoy.
All right. Alex, care to show?
Why do you always use that word when you know I don't process it?
Self-promote.
Okay, so my Twitter is stoned faggot, and then my Instagram is stoned trade. I just realized something. That could have two meanings. Stoned like you stone faggots, and stoned like stoner. That's what I meant. I meant stoner. But like I just realized it could have two meanings. Shit.
Bob's face. just go with it, Alex, and pretend it was deliberate all along.
It was deliberate, yes. I totally didn't just have that realization on a fucking live stream. And then I have YouTube. I have a few YouTubes. I have that non-binary cat where I talk about gay shit and politics and atheism and all that stuff. And then I have shit. I just changed it. What is it now? Alex fucking Leave. I forgot my name, Ben.
That's incredible.
I forgot when I went to the hospital yesterday. I have to give my legal name, and I forgot how to spell my birth name because I haven't put it down for so long. But anyways, so it's Alex fucking Leave, and then I have my business account or YouTube for my gay stuff I make on Etsy, and that's. I need help. My brain's not working.
Unicorn Postal Service. I don't remember the
Unicorn
PS.
Pride Studio.
There
Yeah,
it is.
sorry, my ADHD is so bad right now. I'm not articulating anything well.
Can I quickly jump in and shill something else? There's a website called Card, which is basically 2021's MySpace, and you can list all the websites you're on there with your username. I have this as a crib sheet.
Either that or Linktree. Linktree is also good for that.
So yeah, if you are like Alex and like I am, where you forget things, maybe have one and keep the link handy, and then you can just send people there and they can find what they want of you.
Yes. I think I have one. No, I have a flow page, which is the same thing as Linktree. But what's MySpace again? Wait, did she say my?
This is going back 15 years here.
Yeah.
Oh, the social media thing that you told me about? Oh, so it's old people social media. So
yeah, we were small at the time.
How young are you?
So what was I saying?
About my age, Noodle.
Think work brain. I'm gonna assume you guys know what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Sure, that works.
That works. We'll nod and smile along.
Yeah, my brain's just. I'm sick, and it's ADHD,
Mm-hmm.
and my autism is also starting to act up. So it's like
This is all valid.
all of it's just. I want orange juice. Did we ever get popcorn? Wait, did we ever get popcorn?
I'm just loving Bub's reaction to this. It's quite cute.
I feel like we're getting like an insight into just how you interact. Really.
I'm not used to it in such a public setting.
I can't turn it off just because we're in public.
It's cool. I'm sure lots of Ring's reactions to me are very similar. Although Ring has apparently a better poker face than you, Bob. Which is amusing because Ring doesn't know how to play poker.
He makes fun of me and teases me all the time because my tisms. Asshole.
Yeah, terrible person.
Are you being picked on, Alex?
Yeah, all the time.
Is he being mean to you?
This is me. You guys saw him hit me in the beginning of the video.
Actually, that was before it went live. So
Fuck. Okay, he hit me again. All the time.
It's nice that we've been able to actually just have a laugh and a giggle, though, as we've had this conversation. It's a really heavy conversation.
I was slightly worried it might be too heavy and boring.
Yeah.
Never, especially if I'm here, because I will always find something to talk about that just is so fucking random. It has to be amusing.
Cool. I need you on speed dial, please.
According to the lady at the Panda Express drive-thru, I'm a fucking delight. So,
Well, there you go.
That is the most American sentence I've ever heard anyone say in both accent and words. And I'm married to an American, so well done for that.
yeah, how's that working out for you?
Well, so far.
No. All right. Well, I think I'm going to go ahead and end it here.
sorry, I didn't know I was doing that. I guess I need to stem.
Oh, you're giving me the giggles.
I think my brain's trying to tell me I need to stem. I'm sorry. I didn't realize I did that out loud.
Oh God. But yes, you can find links to YouTube channels for Sam and Noodle down below. I will put Alex's in there. Actually, I'll probably Sam and Noodle, I'm assuming you each have either a link tree or a flow page.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll probably replace your YouTube links with Linktree. That way people can find all your stuff.
I think my link tree is attached to my YouTube one way or another, so.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll also be putting Alex's flow page, and I forgot to put my link tree in, which is
yours isn't
amazing
important.
because
yours isn't
it's
important.
on my channel.
Yours is that white man. Yours isn't important.
Is this bigotry?
Yes.
Cis white man. Is this bigotry?
I'm racist towards white people because I said that cishet white men are the root of most problems. And I'm like, I'm just stating facts. And apparently that's transphobic too.
They're the root of most problems that aren't caused by Rumpelstiltskin.
Or Zeus. Zeus has to bear the brunt here. Or at least Zeus's genitals, but that's a totally different stream. Sorry, I had to end on a polytheist joke because. You know,
oh yeah. Yeah. If you didn't, we might be a bit Thor afterwards.
Yeah, a little bit.
All right. Thanks for coming on to my channel and having this talk with me.
Thanks for having us.
We have another stream. Alex, you're doing these things.
I'm sorry, I'm autistic.
Oh God. Take it easy, everyone. See y'all.
Take care. All the best.